Welcome to Spiritual Coffee Break with Sharon Taphorn, featuring authors, musicians, filmmakers, channels, healers, inventors, and teachers who are out there living their truth, making a difference to assist each of us in awakening to a more joyful journey.
Greetings and welcome. This is Sharon, and I want to welcome you to the show. I would like to invite you to come on into the chat room. All you have to do is go to the little, left-hand side of your screen. You can come on in, just put in a name, and come on in and join us. You don't have to use your real name. Just come on in. We would love to have you in there. And welcome to the show. I have some interesting and enlightening guests joining us today. She has spent the last 2 decades in the mass communication field, striving to bring people information that will help them lead happier, more fulfilling lives. Although we may not always understand them, the universe is constantly sending divine messages our way to help direct us in our lives through validation and information. Her goal is to put each listener in touch with their own inner knowing. Her radio show, Finding Meaning in the Mysterious, will examine the common life questions that we have and show people that they are not alone in their metaphysical experiences. The show will provide insight on a wide array of spiritual topics by interviewing top experts and fascinating guests. Together we will take a journey into the unknown and attempt to bring light and understanding where previously there was darkness. Together we will learn to decipher the language of the universe. Hi Marci, welcome to the show.
Oh, hi. Thanks, Sharon.
Okay, good. We can hear you loud and clear.
Great.
Okay, I gave them the little brief bio that's on the Shift Radio website. So if you would like to share us a little bit more about yourself, a little bit more about where you come from and what you want to do with your show, we would love to hear it.
Oh, great. Well, thanks for asking. Well, I've worked in the media for over 20 years, and I've always been a spiritual person. So this show, Finding Meaning in the Mysterious, is really just like a gift. I mean, it's bringing both sides of my life together in one endeavor, and I'm so excited about it. The show, really, my goal for the show, is just to put people in touch with their own inner knowing. You know, I think we're taught to value logic over everything else in this world. And, you know, in doing so, we've ignored an entire aspect of our own humanity. I think that so many things happen that we just dismiss. And I want people to kind of acknowledge those unexplainable, maybe mystical things that happen. But I also want to give them a frame of reference as well. So that's where my journalistic background comes in. And I hope to take issues like in the past I've done near-death experiences, people who've died and come back and told us what they saw on the other side. I hope to kind of take those sorts of stories where people really don't know how to, think of them and kind of give both sides of the argument, the skeptic side as well, so that people can make their own informed choices.
That's wonderful. Did you have some paranormal experiences as a child or as an adult or a near-death experience or anything like that that has led you to want to share this kind of information with the world?
Well, you know, I've never had a near-death experience, but throughout my life, I don't know if in my research I've seen they said that people that are more open to experiencing these sort of things do, and my family was always very open to seeing the signs, looking for little, inclinations that God is at work in your life. So in that way, I've always been very open. And yes, I have seen signs all my life. And I think that's kind of what led me to be a spiritual person. It never came from an outside source like, a church, so to speak, but it was more of just seeing miracles, little miraculous events in my daily life. Just to give you an example, just this last weekend, I had just done my last show was on after-death communications, which is where spirits who have passed on sometimes actually contact those who are living. And basically the message is, we're all right, don't worry about us, there is something on the other side. And I am renovating the house that I grew up in on the weekends. And I hadn't been back there in, many, many years. And I was thinking a lot about my father who had passed on. And before my father died, his favorite bird was a cardinal. Before he died, these red cardinals would fly into the windows for like 3 weeks before he died, like dozens of them. They would fly into the window and fall, and my mother thought that was the strangest thing. And when he passed away, we actually had a red cardinal put on his tombstone. Well, last weekend, I was there, and I had just done this show about seeing the signs. I opened this little tiny window. I swear, it's like 4 by 3. And I hear this squawking in the back of the house. I go back. A red cardinal has flown into the house. It's in the master bedroom, and it's trapped in the window. I mean, it was just one of those things where, again, you could dismiss it and say, is that just coincidence? But my inner knowing, that intuition, that feeling that you just know that is a message was there. And so it was really kind of neat. It was powerful. It was like, okay, if you're willing to see these things, they really do happen. And I walked over to the window, and he was trapped between the blinds and the glass, and I reached over and I picked up this red cardinal. I held it in my hands, and the whole time I'm thinking, Daddy, if this is a message that you're, alive and well somewhere else, I accept it. I acknowledge it. And I opened the door, and I went outside, and I opened my hands, and the bird just flew up free into the air, and it was just such a neat feeling. And so those sort of things happen. I mean, they do happen. And I think generally people dismiss them. They want to say, oh, there's another reason. But it could have been any kind of bird that flew in that window, and it wasn't. It was a red cardinal. So I know, in my heart that was one of those neat little miracles that happen in this universe.
That's an absolutely beautiful share. I agree with that. And someone in the chat room, Terry, said that my mother sends me robins. And I firmly believe in looking for the signs from people that are coming to you. And I think that's a beautiful share. Thank you very much for that.
Oh, thank you for letting me.
Yeah. So how do you go about deciding what to do for your show? Like, do you just have like certain subjects that really interest you and you go looking for stories, or do people come to you? How do you collect and prepare and do the things that you're doing?
Well, that really hasn't been a problem. When I sat down and I thought about doing this show, I thought, well, what would I do shows on? And I sat down and I came up with 12 topics right then. Boom, 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 boom. I mean, these are the sort of things that I love. I love kind of delving into, the areas where there are no definite, defined answers. I mean, these are real things that we experience, but we don't have any way of understanding them. Science doesn't really have a method for gauging these sorts of things, and yet they happen. So, how do you account for that? And the journalist in me wants to know. I want answers. And I realize that with these sorts of questions, I may never find definitive answers, but I think that the important thing is that you have to bring that feeling, that inner knowing again, into the equation. I mean, I think that's the missing piece of the puzzle. We really have not done that in the past. So that's really my goal, is just to kind of, lay it out there for people, the whole broadness of it, the skeptic argument and the, this is what I know, and let people make their own choices. And I think people are doing that. I think that's part of what the shift is all about. People are starting to come into their own as far as believing their own, feelings and notions.
And learning to trust in that. And I agree. I think that's wonderful. There's a couple little other shares in the chat room here. Beverly said that when her husband passed, a 2-inch long moth appeared in the hospital room on the 6th floor. And his nurse said in her religion that that's a symbol of spirit.
Exactly. That's exactly the sort of thing. That's right. And I think, you feel it, you know it. And a lot of times people are afraid to tell those stories because they don't want to see other people take away something so precious to them with their, skepticism. They try to dismiss it. But I'm through that. I did that for a lot of years, and I decided, no more. What's true for me is true for me, and I'm going to say it. And in doing so, what I've seen is everybody else has a story too. They just say, I had never told anybody this, but, and then they share it, and it really feels good to know that you're not alone. These things do happen.
And I agree with you. I know that, I have always been able to connect with the spirit world on various levels, to actually hearing them speak to me, to just having a sense again, a knowing about what's happening, going on with them. And so, when I listen to your shows, I hear such common threads in stories that I've heard throughout the years in people who've had paranormal experiences and things like that. And I think that, even as much as I don't watch mass television so much, a lot of this stuff is becoming less woo-woo and more part of our lives. And I really like that shift in consciousness, that opening up and sharing that's happening in the world.
Absolutely, and that's what I'd like to see more of. I think that whole woo-woo gave it a bad reputation. It made you feel like you didn't want to say those things, or people would think you're crazy. And that's not the case. It's really a part of our humanity that we just really haven't acknowledged publicly. And the thing about me is I really don't have any, psychic, talents that I can speak of. I'm really just an average person. But the difference is, I think that I've allowed my mind, and more so my heart, to open up to these things and see what's happening. And in doing so, I mean, it just really makes you feel the majesty and miracle of living and the awe of life. And I hope that everybody has that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really beautiful. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Marci Wise, the person?
Well, let's see. I've been married for 20 years to my high school sweetheart, so that's kind of different. We met in the 8th grade, and I saw him, and maybe it was psychic, but I said, that's the boy for me. So we've been married for a long time. We have two sons, 12 and 15. And I'm just very, very busy now. I was actually laid off from my television job about a year and a half ago, and it was, one of the biggest blessings that ever happened, because it was like my hands were kind of tied working for, a company that is always concerned about the bottom line. And it gave me a chance to stand back and say, okay, now who am I and what do I really want to do with my time and my talents? And it was just funny how the Shift Radio came along and several other things. I'm writing a book too that has to do with those little epiphanies, those aha moments that you have, those little, subtle shifts in perception that kind of wake you up and make you behave a little differently, and all of a sudden your life is new, So, I don't know. It's just an exciting time for me right now. I really feel like I'm coming into my own. I guess I'm a late bloomer. I'm 42, so finally things are coming together.
I don't think that's a late bloomer, because I'm just a tad bit older than that, and I feel the same way. I feel like as the energy is shifting on the planet, a lot of us are coming into what we truly have been here and waiting for to happen, that the energy is just right for those things to happen. So I think that's just beautiful. Thanks so much for that share. What kind of projects are you working on? Do you do like freelance work, things like that? What is it? Apart from your book, which of course we're going to look forward to, and maybe when that comes out, you can come back on and have a bit to share on that.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm a ghostwriter. I actually write books for other people, and right now I'm working on something. It's like a parenting book, so it really does. There's no particular topic that I specialize in. I basically am just a writer, producer, editor is what I call myself, which is basically a jack of all trades. If it has to do with the media, sometime over the last 20 years I've done it. And I will do it for other people if they'd like me to. The neat thing is now, though, that I'm finding that I am able to kind of use them to help spread, the word to people, as far as, being more in touch with them, what they want out of life, and living a better life, And I that makes me feel good, because I think that's what it's all about. Like you said, people are waking up. They want to be real. They want to be authentic, and that's what I'm feeling. And it's really neat right now, because I think that a lot of people are awakening, and a lot of them are coming into this new. They don't know anything about it. They don't even really know what's going on with them, except that they want their lives to be different than it has been. And hopefully my show will approach that topic from a very, user-friendly place, being that I myself, kind of come from that angle. We'll just start at the beginning, and we'll move on from there.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and I think you do that very well in your show, since your shows comes on, it comes on the 4th Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. Eastern, right before one of my shows, Playing with the Universe, so I'm usually there listening, and you do present things very well, very balanced. You like to bring in different people to show, different people's opinions. I mean, and these people don't know each other. They're not all speaking at the same time, and so it really shows a nice common thread in things that are happening. So I want to thank you for that, and for stepping up to the plate and joining us here at the Shift.
Thank you very much.
And sharing.
Thank you.
And I'd like to give everyone your website, which is www.marciwise.com. So that's MarciWise.com.
Thank you, Sharon.
And thank you so much for joining us today.